Hi, welcome back to the Big White House YouTube channel. This is the last in my series of Q&A videos for now. If you've watched the other three, good on you. Today we're going to be discussing more of the money related questions, stuff about savings, mortgages, that kind of thing. Yeah, so we're just going to jump straight in. Lots of things really. Essentially, I'd say the main things are good credit history, not necessarily a good credit score. Obviously the two typically do come hand in hand, but you could have a good credit score but not really that much history. They want to see that you have like routine behavior. Lenders typically don't want to take a risk on somebody who is risky. Essentially, a mortgage is the bank investing in you. The bank is saying, I'm going to lend you money that I have with the aim that I'm going to get more back from it. So it's an investment. So you've just got to make yourself the most worthwhile candidate for investment, which for anybody would be, as minimal risk as possible. Good at managing what you already have, that you live within your means, that you've not just started doing it like 5 minutes ago, that there's probably a 3 to 6 month history of you being consistent in your behavior. You've got some levels of security, so a job or some regular consistent income. You understand the property that you're buying and the area and the value of it, which is why you get surveys done. What else does it take? Because it's an investment, like with anything, the bank want you to show that you are serious about it. The seriousness is expressed through a deposit. Put your money where your mouth is, essentially. My first step would be to understand what kind of person you are. So if you're naturally good at saving, then it shouldn't really be that much of an issue. It might just be a case of figuring out how much, like what the total amount is that you want to achieve, setting out some realistic milestones to achieve that. If you're already good at the principle of saving anyway. But if you're maybe not such a great saver, I think the key is to just be really honest with yourself. Just know what your areas of weakness are. So if it's the discipline to actually put the money aside every month, then maybe set up a standing order from one of your bank accounts to another specific savings account. We did that for ours. Sometimes we like to physically put the money aside, but for some things we just want it to go before we even have a chance to acknowledge that it's there. It's just easier and it's like less of a burn when you've got to put a significant amount of money away every month. I think also just being realistic with your goals, but by the same token actually stretching yourself. For me, when I start to see the savings stacking and growing, it's like a real incentive for me to keep saving. It could potentially go towards something or some things of value rather than just getting wasted frivolously. So really it's about understanding yourself and knowing what's going to make you tick and what are the pitfalls to avoid your game being messed up. It's amazing what you can actually save if you really have a goal in mind. So I think setting yourself a goal really does help, because it's like, oh, I could buy this whatever thing for like £20, but that's an extra £20 that could go towards my savings goal. And when you actually look at it, you think like in a month's time, I'm probably going to be over this thing that's 20 quid, but actually I'm not going to be over my goal. So it's always worth weighing it up in that respect. Being quite disciplined, I think. But if you're not, like I said, set up the systems and things that will help you become that way. So most banks will request a 10% deposit as a minimum. There are schemes where you can get a 5% deposit. Back when, our parents' generation, there were such things as 0% deposits. The bank would basically just give you all the money. Those are the days, eh? In order to give you a mortgage, they'll give you a potential mortgage in principle, which is basically based on your financial situation, your income, your setup, etc. However, the transition from mortgage in principle and like a mortgage offer, people think is just straightforward, and 9 times out of 10 I think it is. But what happens sometimes, and actually happened in our case, was that when they looked into the particular property that we wanted to buy, they were happy to offer us a mortgage, but they did not want to offer us a mortgage on that particular property because they felt that the property was too risky of an investment should they have to for any reason repossess it, they weren't certain that they could resell it easily. We chose to put a 10% deposit down as opposed to more because I was about to have our baby like the month after, and the fact that we wanted to renovate it, we wanted to put the other money that we had towards renovating the property and doing other things that we felt could add value at that time. Basically, if you put more than a 10% deposit down, your loan to value ratio improves, so therefore you pay less a month in interest, thus bringing your monthly mortgage payment down. And some people are real advocates for this, and I'm sure it is a good idea, but you just have to work out what's best for you at that particular moment. When we did the calculations, putting more in, obviously it's only going to be like a handful more, and it would have really made like the most minimal difference in terms of our monthly payments. So rather than spend that money initially and it bring our monthly payment down by literally like £10 or something, we can afford the extra £10, but we'd rather the extra £5,000 or whatever it was to be able to invest in improving our house and renovating it and thus adding value. So that's a decision we made. There are lots of ways. Some people are real advocates for putting more money down. So yeah, there's lots of different ways, but just have a Google and have a read and you'll find out for yourself. There are the government schemes that allow you to put a 5% deposit down. I think they still operate now. And there are some banks and lenders that will accept a 5% deposit. The idea behind it is to just allow people to access the property ladder a little easier, particularly in cities where house prices are really high. You know, a 10% deposit for some people can be quite a tricky thing to achieve alongside renting and, you know, other things that they have going on in their lives. So I think that was the idea behind the 5% deposit scheme. The government basically subsidise you. As far as I'm aware, check for yourself, the 5% deposit government scheme only permits you to buy a new build property. It's called a Help to Buy equity loan. Essentially it says,
with the Help to Buy equity loan, the government lends you up to 20% of the cost of your newly built home, so you'll only need a 5% cash deposit and a 75% mortgage to make up the rest.
So essentially, in order to purchase the property, you and the government combined are working together to put down a 25% deposit, 5% of which is money that you've contributed, 20% of which is what the government has contributed, and then the 75% that remains is what the bank are lending you in the form of a mortgage. So essentially there's three parties involved in this investment. There's you, the government, and the bank. You do have to pay the 20% back, but you don't get charged fees on the loan for the first 5 years. So for the 20% that the government have lent you, you don't get charged fees on it for the first 5 years. But after 5 years, obviously, you've got to start repaying it, which therefore also makes your monthly expenditure higher. So it's a good way and a good incentive to get you on the property ladder initially. You've just got to figure out whether in 5 years' time you're going to be able to afford the entirety of the cost of purchasing that property. Because you don't want to be in a position where you get to that 5-year point and you're really struggling to afford the property that you've committed to. For those of you that don't know, if you know, forgive me for explaining. Equity is the portion of the property that you truly own. Like I've mentioned, a lot of people get a mortgage in order to buy a property, which essentially is a loan from the bank. The part that the bank have lent you, you don't own until you pay it off. The part that you own is only the deposit that you've paid. Now, because typically the property market is something that appreciates, i.e. increases in value, the property that you've purchased will hopefully appreciate, thus creating a separate section of profit.
Kind of.
So the part that the bank owes is what the bank get back, plus the interest that you've agreed to pay. The part that you've placed in deposit actually increases in value because it's in a property, which is an asset that increases in value. So the money that is made on the property value increase is actually yours, right? Which is why when you sell the house, you can make money even though you've not paid off the mortgage. Through the sale of the property, you pay the bank back what you owe them and what you've agreed to pay them for that duration. The rest of it you get as profit. equity. Equity can be generated at any point throughout the process. It just depends on chance, what you've bought, where you've bought it, how you've bought it, what you spent on it, etc. So if you bought a property right before a property market boom, then you could have equity the next day. But in most cases, people invest in a property with a view to generating as much equity in the property as possible. That's what we are trying to do. We bought a property that we feel has the potential to be valued at a much higher price right now and in the future. Bought it for as little as we could get away with, and then we're doing works on the property to increase the value in key areas that would actually make the property more valuable. Not just cosmetically, but fundamental things like rewiring, boiler and system, plumbing, and all of that stuff. People typically do that to fund other projects that they have going on. They may want to buy a second property, renovate their house, maybe go on a holiday or whatever it is. Essentially, you spending that little bit of profit that you've generated while still owning the property. Normally, people would benefit from that equity at the point of sale, but you can withdraw equity by remortgaging, and it's a whole other thing, and then actually use that to further your portfolio or financial position in life. So guys, thanks for watching another episode with me. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it informative. If you know somebody that would benefit from some of the things that I've been talking about, send them this video. It's some of the stuff I wish I'd have known beforehand, but hey, it's helpful. So send and share. I really would appreciate that. Thanks so much to all of you that have subscribed. My heart is full. I'm gonna do some other videos, some vlogs, show you around the house. COVID is trying to be an enemy of progress at the moment, but Boris is lifting bans now, isn't he? So hopefully things will start going back to normal. Next step for me is getting the baby room sorted. She's gonna be 6 months in June, and apparently that's when you have to ship them out of your bedroom and into their own, so I need to get that done. Let's do this together. Renovate in style. Mwah.